like to call the Blackstone-Millville Regional School Committee meeting to order on Thursday, May 26, 2016. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with introduction of members.
Bill Chaplin, Blackstone.
Jane Reggio, Millville.
Georgette Jarrett, Blackstone.
Jack Keefe, Student Representative.
Brittany Dwyer, Student Representative.
Joanne Watson, Blackstone.
Steve Tringali, Millville.
Tara Larkin, Millville. Wendy Greenstein, Blackstone.
Alan Himmelberger, Superintendent.
Dave Thompson, Assistant Superintendent.
Okay, we have our first public forum. Okay, report of student representatives.
So we've had a busy couple weeks at BMR. One thing I want to do before we start talking about it is congratulate Brittany on her winning student council president. It was a good campaign. We both gave some pretty rousing speeches. So earliest we had our Ultimate Frisbee tournament, which is basically a team from each class. You sign up, you volunteer to play on the teams. It started with the juniors and the sophomores playing against each other, the seniors and the freshmen. The juniors and the seniors won their respective games and went on, played against each other, at which point the juniors lost, unfortunately, by about 6 touchdowns. It was sad. But it was a fun time, and as always with the during the day events, we got high participation. And I'll throw it over to Brittany.
Throughout the past couple weeks, rounding up the year, we've had a couple things going on in student council, such as elections went on last week. The winners of the elections include me as president, Anita Lehue as VP, Jess Morris as secretary, Julia Catalano as treasurer, Caitlin Castelluccio, historian, Emily Campbell, public relation, Elizabeth Strickars, solicitor, and Lauren Bouvier and Elizabeth Volby as delegates. And also we just had, last week was the seniors' last day, if you guys didn't know, and we call it S5, which is Super Senior Send-Off Spirit Session. And that has a participation week where we have spirit weeks. Monday we do freshman class shirts, Tuesday we do sophomores, Wednesday is juniors, and Thursday is seniors, and then the seniors on the last day of school wear their college sweatshirts and everyone else wore their class shirts. So if you didn't have like your black shirt because you weren't a senior, you just wore black instead. And on the last day we had a Brazilian volleyball tournament where multiple teams got together, and Jack will talk more about that.
So the teams were comprised of anyone from any class. Basically, students got together and created their own teams. There were something like 8 or 9 teams and 2 courts. The games were best out of 3, and it ended up being a mostly senior team with maybe 1 or 2 juniors on it against the faculty in the end. And for the first time since I've been in BMR, the mostly senior team actually beat the faculty. Doesn't happen often because Mr. Curran's probably the best volleyball player I've ever seen in person. And then after that, the following Monday was the Junior College Fair, which is an event in Boston. Every year it's the National College Fair held at the Boston Convention Center. So most of the junior class, except for a few stragglers and some baseball players, went out to Boston that day. It was provide your own transportation, which went smoothly, like very smooth for what I was expecting. Really great reflection on our class with that. It was successful. I saw a lot of other students there. I got there personally very early. I saw a lot of colleges, had a lot of fun too. Probably got out of the convention at around 10, but spent the rest of the day in Boston because why not? It's fun. Nobody's lost, nobody got hurt, and nobody died. So, successful day.
All right, so next week starts senior week. So even though they're not in school, they have several things going on throughout the week. Tuesday, they have their class trip to Brownstone, and they spend the day there. On Wednesday, they have their banquet where they get their yearbooks and just remember, their last night together as a class before they graduate. Thursday in the morning, they have the rehearsal for their award night. And that night, they have their awards where each department of the school picks 2 students that achieve in outstanding ways in that subject, and it's a really great place in time to remember what great things that these kids did. Friday in the morning, they have graduation rehearsal, and graduation is on Friday. I believe it starts at 6. Class elections is going on in the next couple weeks. This year, well, like always, you have to fill out a candidate paper, and you have 20 student signatures and 5 faculty signatures. And this year, we have a new rule where you have to meet with our tech director, and you have to create a 1 to 2 minute video about who you are, what kind of things you want to accomplish in the following year, and they will be shown during our advisory on a Wednesday morning, and they will vote then.
And lastly, finals are coming up in about 3 weeks, and the exemption policy is the same as it's been before, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. You guys approved the handbook. But just a refresher, 85 plus in a class with 4 absences or less, and you're exempt from that class's exam. And a 90 plus with 5 absences or less is also an exemption.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the update.
Well, you all have a fun time with the rest of your meeting.
You too.
I'm sure I'll get an update about it. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, on to consent agenda A. We have warrants, the field trip request, and minutes of the meeting for May 12th, 2016. Looking for a motion if you want to approve them separately. Questions?
Move to accept consent agenda A.
Motion made by Jane. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second made by Steve. Discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to the school committee, the approval of the 2016-2017 school committee meeting calendar. You'll find those in your packet. The only one that is questionable is February 23rd. We'll have to move that one because that's during February vacation. Does anybody else have any questions on the calendar?
Is April 13th questionable too? Because that might be vacation if
Well, the
the other calendar is approved.
It's the Thursday before
the
vacation.
13th is the Thursday, Good Friday is leading into the April vacation.
I know, but the calendar we got last time said that that might be the first day of school vacation.
It may be,
It's tentatively scheduled to be a professional day, I believe.
Oh, all right, professional, okay.
Good. And if that is the case, I mean, we can make adjustments coming down
Yeah.
closer to that meeting date.
The meeting on the February 23rd, that's our budget hearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are our requirements there for that one? Where do we have to move that to? The budget hearing, the
yep.
meeting can be wherever, but where we have to move the budget to? Have to back that up to the 9th, or?
Unless you wanted to go back-to-back the 16th or the 2nd, but probably the 16th would be the latest.
Yeah, because you need time to do the budget, obviously.
Yeah, would it even, why don't we go to the 2nd,
It'll be ready.
by the 16th? Wow, you're good.
So go the, 9th and the 16th?
Yeah, okay.
Sounds
So
good.
just making that change of February, we'll do the 9th and the 16th. So just need a motion with the amendment on it. Anybody want to make a motion to accept this calendar?
So moved.
Motion made by Bill. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Jane. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving right along, the superintendent contract. The committee has recently reviewed Alan's contract, and we've already spoken about his evaluation for last year. We'd like to share that we are extending Alan's contract as of this July 1st for 3 years. And Alan, I don't know if you'd like to say a few words about the superintendent assistant superintendent contract?
First of all, thank you very much to the committee. I think it sends a powerful message to the communities to have continuity of stewardship within our district, and I look forward to 3 more years of hard work and moving us forward. I'd also like to say that everyone knows the contribution that Dr. Thompson has made, and really, our success is our success. And I would also be bringing to the committee over the next meeting or two a 3-year contract for Dave as well. I think that that is important for all of us to have that continuity. I look forward to it.
It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. Report of the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Looking at the student handbooks, we have our principals here tonight. Thank you all, leadership team, for being here. There are some additions and some deletions, and however the order you would like, they will present them to the committee for your approval.
Okay. Like to come up?
Elementary.
Elementary? Yeah, sure.
Just as a quick note, we welcome Mrs. Schaefer, who has been doing a terrific job while Dr. Haughey is on the mend, and it was great to see Dr. Haughey today in the offices. So we look forward to his rapid recovery and return, and thanks again to Mrs. Schaefer.
Good evening.
Okay, a few changes. Obviously, we need to update some dates for next year, so we will be updating the date on the cover page. We will also, do you want me to give you page numbers or just share? Yeah, no, okay.
Just go over the highlights.
I don't
Yeah,
want to move
highlights are
too
good.
quickly.
Well, they end up being the same when you redo things. so it
Absolutely,
doesn't-
absolutely. So also we'll need to update the school officials page and the names of all of the coordinators. And then obviously the table of contents and the school calendar. Those are changes that we make yearly.
Do you want me to do the next section? Then we were looking at a little more close detail to the parent emergency information after just reviewing what's happening at the elementary schools. And we decided to add a section, parent emergency contact guide, to communicate better to the community about the reason we ask for emergency contact information, the importance of it, to move beyond just giving cell phone number and home number in case parents are not accessible to each of those, to look beyond that, because sometimes a student's brought back because no one's at the bus stop, sometimes a child is ill, there might be concerns, and it's hard for us sometimes to get a hold of a parent. So we cannot release anyone, as everyone knows, without parental permission. So putting it in writing and keeping some points in mind, such as having multiple resources. So look at neighbors, look at other responsible adults giving us permission, include your office number, your fax number, look at family who live close by in case we cannot get a hold of the parents, because that is just of utmost importance. And then to update the emergency contacts. So we retyped it, it's on there. If you want to take a minute to read through that, because that's what we're thinking of adding to it, to a section that's already in the handbook, to clarify things a bit.
So, and this, I think, probably is just for kindergartners, but when you fill out that form and you have multiple people that are on that emergency contact, how are you going to get those numbers from grade levels that you currently have in the elementary school? If you're going to change this, I guess my question would be, how do you reach out for those emergency contacts once you get past kindergarten?
I think they send them out every year.
every year.
They send them out every year.
Okay, good. But that'll be changed, that sheet will be changed too, so that there's multiple contacts?
There already is.
I think there are several spaces, but what people tend to do is they'll just put parents' name, cell phone,
Okay.
home number, and if you can't get a hold of parents from cell phone and home number.
Right.
Put it over on the back and keep writing.
Right. So it's really just to make sure you're pushing that parents need to have multiple contacts. So, because if
Yes.
there's only two, then they have to understand what the next step has to be for the school.
Right.
Very good.
And
And then moving on to the program of studies, we had quite a comprehensive list under program of studies that outlined the curriculum and the standards at each grade level. And so we are suggesting that we delete that information and just provide a link to the Department of Education standards. And so that would always be updated as they may update it at the DESE.
And then the last piece, I think we changed the dismissal procedures just a little bit to clarify it even more. And again, discuss that dismissal procedures are in place to ensure safety of the children. Parents need to arrange for dismissal in writing. And one note for consistent pickups is fine, and that's acceptable. Picking up students, people who are picking up your child need to know that they should have a photo ID, because we do ask for photo IDs for children's safety, so that they're not caught off guard. If they're like, well, I had a note, we still ask for your photo ID. And then if it's an early dismissal, again, we need it in writing, include the time your child would be picked up, by whom, and the adult must be ready with a photo ID. But obviously, if there's an emergency, you can certainly call the school. But if it's in writing, it just ensures everything is followed specifically.
And then we wanted to add some.
Question?
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
sorry.
Can you email? Is that considered in writing? Can you send an email?
It's tricky. Sometimes teachers do have emails and they print it, but if you're emailing the administrative assistant or the teacher and they're out, we have no way of getting their email.
So if it's a dismissal that happens within the day, like, let's say, for instance, I have to call for a doctor's appointment, my child's already in school, the only way to do that would be through email if you wanted a written response. Would that be suggested to go to the secretary?
Again, it's,
Because of that situation? I mean, I know that that's pretty
Right.
common
if
protocol.
the secretary's out, we have a substitute. They cannot access the secretary's personal email.
But that's when you can make the phone call.
That's when you can make the phone call.
And they can also just come in. I mean,
They can also
They can just
say,
come in.
I'm here
That's
to
right,
take,
we've
you
had
know,
that
my
too.
son Johnny Smith home.
Absolutely.
Just the parent can go in, not, I couldn't send my sister in,
Right.
Right.
like an aunt or an uncle or something.
But you
You'd
could-
want a
you
parent
could
for
call,
that type thing.
You could
If
call.
you call
right.
instead,
And
but
then
just
that
to walk
person
in.
must be on the emergency
Emergency
contact
list.
list, and then that person may be asked to produce a photo ID.
Okay.
And if you do email, just ask for confirmation, so you know that the person got it.
Right.
Because there's no way for any of us to know if that, the teacher or the administrative assistant is out. And I think we were going to replace these dismissal procedures and delete the current ones. I didn't make that clear. Thank you.
I would also think that if you called and you needed something in writing, perhaps we could fax something to the school. That might be a good solution, but I think calling and finding out the best way to get a written
Right.
piece in there would be,
You know, it happens pretty far and few between,
right.
but the idea is we just want to make sure that our students are safe,
We had, how many, you counted one day, over 100 students
being picked up.
So we want to make sure that everyone is accounted for. We have a system where we check off, write off, check the IDs.
And sometimes even they'll say, oh, I'm getting picked up today. And we'll say, oh, we didn't get a note. So then we have to call the parents and make sure. So it's just.
Right.
Bill, you had a
Can I
question?
jump back one section to the, you're deleting the program of studies and just having a link to the DESI standards? It's just clarifying for me, is there anything unique that we're losing about BMR elementary schools within the program of studies that wouldn't be in the standards? Or is it, I don't know, is that common, just to have the standards there? Or is there something unique about the program of studies that we would have or not? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good first step. My hope is that by next year, we will have a link to the Aspen X2 curriculum maps.
Okay.
Which
All right.
will solve that. I mean, basically you follow the standards that are in the, at the department's website, but it doesn't tell when. And so this is kind of an intermediate step where in the future, we will have the ability to turn on and share the curriculum maps so you could go to the website and see any of them. But that's hopefully at the end of next year, maybe mid-year.
Is there any like how would a new parent know about like Envision's math or something that unique that we're doing that wouldn't be part of the DESI standards?
That's actually,
I'm just clarifying. I don't
sure,
know.
no, absolutely. There are parent letters that should be going home that that provide parents with important links if they want to go online, and the login information that students have.
Right.
So that's really grade-specific that is sent home.
Okay.
Right. And basically, parents have their own portal that they can go and watch and follow along all the lessons and all the units online.
What about a non-parent who wants to move into town and wants to check out the elementary schools? Would we lose something there as well if something's, again, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps, but again, right now, it's...
The majority, right.
Yeah, I mean, right now, what we have is not actually what we're doing, and we're in transition, so...
Okay.
I would think that once we continue that work, we could probably embed links for the math.
Yeah. Oh, I think once Atlas is up there, I think
Right.
that'll be really clear for
Right.
anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing that I neglected to add is that we have been meeting as a report card committee throughout the year, so we're taking a look at revising our report card. It needs it, yes, I know, we're really excited. It's been a lot of work, an incredible amount of discussion. So once we reach consensus, we'll move forward with that, and that information will have to change in the handbook as well.
Yay.
I know, I know.
Just to Bill's point, I think that's a great idea to think about moving ahead is, you know, we do get those sheets for Envisions and we do get those links, but we often get them and then we lose them, or we, you know, and if we don't have them posted somewhere, so a link to things like that would be definitely a great tool to think of moving forward. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have to approve the, we don't?
I have a procedural, I don't think we've ever done this, but do we have to do like more than one read?
You can waive the reading,
Okay.
yes.
Have you ever done more than one read since you've been here?
No, I don't think so.
Typically, the committee
I
would
don't think we've
approve
ever done
the
that. We just
changes,
take it.
and then waive the reading,
Okay.
and they
So we do
then
approve the
can go to
changes.
print, yes.
We should approve the
Yes, you
changes.
should.
In total, I think. Would
In
you
total,
do-
okay.
Yes.
In total.
You can do it each school separately, or you can do them all as a group.
Okay.
Oh, geez.
Cool, thanks. Good evening.
Is it on there?
Is the proposed changes just for the elementary, or are they
This is
going
also
through
for,
too?
this is also for.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. Middle school first?
Why not?
Sure.
Great. Everybody have the packet in front of them with the red there. Very subtle changes this year. So there was no big policy change, no big policy additions or policies taken out. So I'm on page 1 of the middle school, a few pages. Again, page 2 of our handbook, we just really updated the points of contact when we do not have school.
Okay, don't go any further.
Yep.
All right. First of all, when I started reading this, and it reads, and if you're like me and you just read the beginning and you don't read the whole thing, it reads, when school is closed due to inclement weather or any other emergency, no school announcements will be made. So it sounds like you're not going to announce it. I mean, I realize that that's not what
They
you're
added all
intending
that, yeah.
to say, but that's how it reads if you're just reading it quickly, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't you make an announcement? But that's just an aside. My real point is, none of those stations are in Rhode Island, and we do have families that work in Rhode Island, and so if it was like a midday, early dismissal cancellation or whatever, it would not come up over the things that so adding at least like one Rhode Island.
Channel 10 or
Channel
6 or
10
12 or
or
something.
12 or
We
turn to
did.
10 or whatever.
Yeah,
would-
this past year, we did contact Channel 10.
Yes. So just adding one of those would be,
Channel 10?
yep.
At a Providence?
Yes.
Nowadays, I think the last thing mentioned, which is the one-call notification
Yeah,
system,
yeah,
is
yeah.
what everybody relies upon.
Especially now that it calls more than one number.
More than one time sometimes. But if it does go out, there needs to be a different form
Correct.
of, so that's good.
Okay, thank you. Under attendance, we just added some words there and trying to be more clear as to what an excused absence looks like at the middle school.
Okay.
Down under paragraph 5, we had a sentence that read, after this period, all missing work is recorded as a 0. And we have changed that to, after this period, all missing work will be graded at teacher discretion. so that we had no policy that cornered teachers into giving zeros, which is very different from our philosophy, as I think most of you know it.
But could some teachers give zeros and some teachers not and give?
Is there a consistent message?
Yeah, well, not a part of any of this is the work that school council is doing, especially with the two teams and the two math teachers on each team, two science teachers, to have those, almost the syllabus to be in sync, so that, there isn't a big difference when it comes to when there are periods of teacher discretion.
That's probably a good idea, because a zero absolutely trashes the average.
Sure does.
It's unrecoverable, generally, at that point.
Yep.
And that's not really your intent, I know.
Nope.
But I think the inconsistency worries me too, where, one teacher could give a 0 and one teacher could grade accordingly.
Yeah,
The inconsistency does worry me just a little bit. Not that they should get a 0, because I definitely agree with it. It's just the teacher discretion could be go either way.
Yeah, but we're working at a focus of that discretion being on paper given to parents those first couple weeks of school, where that consistency, my eyes are going to be on it, the assistant principal's eyes, that consistency needs to be there. Okay. I'm not too worried about the teachers who, plan to give the 0, because I just don't see that happening. It's the one that will give 50% off and the other one takes it for full credit.
Right.
It's more that we're kind of seeing right now that we're trying to clean up a little.
Right. But that'll be overseen by yourself and the administration team.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep, school council is really on that this year, where, again, all teachers give out a syllabus next year, and those policies are very clear, because that speaks to, percentage of what they count for homework. Same thing. If I have one teacher who counts homework for 60% of the grade and another one who doesn't count homework for any percentage, that's problematic.
Okay, good.
Page 2. Actually, page 1, the paragraph reads, and it's just subtly changed to, after 5 unexcused absences, the principal designee will contact the parents to review the attendance policy.
Is that every 5? Or what, I don't know, what's the pattern?
5 a quarter.
A quarter.
Yes.
Did it have a number
Under the
before?
cheating, I'm sorry?
Did it have a number before?
3.
3.
Okay.
Under the cheating plagiarism policy, I think it was just clarification with the conjunction "and" there. Under progress reports, we have been for a number of years now making our progress report averages available on our X2 parent portal. That was actually a push to get more parents on the portal, and it's been working. We've been fortunate to have a tech director who's given us data to how many parents are logging in, how many times they, are on. And I think it was may have been 4 years ago when we did away from the paper copies of the progress reports. And when that happened, we had a number of parents that were like, "So tell me about this parent portal you have." So we've finally now got it into our handbook, because I think...
So now, how do you know, because it said before the reports had to be signed, so how do you know that the parent has actually seen that report?
Well, that the data pull that we can do will tell us that.
That they actually saw that page, or that they just went on the portal?
They went on the portal like the day that the progress reports were posted. It's not a sign-off, and we still require that for report cards.
Oh, you do?
For report cards, yes. This is just progress reports. These are mid-quarter progress reports. That, even though the handbook as it reads right now says a paper copy, is given to students, that's been outdated for a number of years. We haven't required a sign-off on progress reports for about 4 years now.
Okay.
This is just language we
Can I jump back one section, Justin, for a minute? The help me understand the going from 3 unexcused to 5, because I'm sure there's a reason why you're doing 2 more.
I think, the assistant principal and I really, our conversation was more focused on, that there are no present consequences to the 3 or the 5 right now, except for, trying to get the parents in for a meeting, and we were finding that to be very problematic after just 3. So the parent involvement that we're really pushing, unfortunately, due to, maybe the average of all the kids per quarter is 4, it just allows us to be less taxed in that area.
Okay.
How many do you have unexcused? Do you know?
We've been, high schools and middle schools battle this all over the place.
Yeah.
And there's so many, ways to think about it, different perspectives. And some are saying that if you're at 18 for the year, it's chronic, because it's 10% of the school year.
Right.
There's no easy way. He's right. I mean, from 3 to 5, there's no easy way. I think you just have to get people. The bottom line is you have to get kids wanting to come to school and being engaged in class, and we do all that. It's just that I think what Justin's saying, which is clear, is that it was hard with parents after 3 saying, "Hey, this is the problem."
Yeah.
Now we're saying, "Listen, it's 5."
Yeah.
We're on a bad pattern here. Which is true, but it's hard everywhere. I'm sure it's the same across the district.
Well, I think sometimes 3 can happen in one shot, and you're automatically at that maximum where.
Well, these are unexcused.
Right.
These are unexcused.
Yeah.
People can have excused.
That's what I was going to say.
It's the key word's the unexcused.
Yeah, the big thing is what's excused, what's unexcused.
Right.
I know.
That's really where
Right,
you
'cause
get
if you're
hung up.
homesick with unexcused,
Yeah.
you're without a doctor's note, but you're legitimately sick,
Yeah.
that's still,
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no easy answer on this.
But again, the excused and unexcused is a tricky one. Like in our building, we get all the time, if you get over 10, you get a letter saying we're looking at this. Over 12, we call an ESIP meeting, which, is basically a truancy officer would get the courts involved. But then they just throw it back to the doctors, and doctors give them virtually blank notes.
I know.
That there was out this many days, here, for as many as you want.
But
So
think
it
of the
loses all its
I mean,
teeth.
this issue, the total number, I would say probably 80% this doesn't even affect of the student population in both schools.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the same in our school. You know what I mean? It's just, if you just get those cohorts of kids that are just chronically, and you just have to do everything you can to every intervention you can think of. All right, thank you, Justin.
You're welcome. Any questions on the progress reports being available on the portal? Okay. The next one, the options, is actually similar to getting parents to recognize that they have access to the discipline at the middle school. I can't speak upon the other schools, but the parent portal does grant all our families at the middle school access to their discipline records. It's with a tab, it's a conduct tab, and that's what page 3 reads, that the discipline referrals and anything done is immediately immediately parents, guardians have access to that 24/7 if they are online to the parent portal. And then the last one, the cafeteria policy, is just simply our lunches have been 30 minutes for a great number of years, and for some reason they read 25.
So it says approximately 30, or delete this last line altogether?
Yeah, I'm not sure why she put that.
Well, is there any benefit to defining a lunch period?
Right.
You just leave it off.
Yeah,
I would say leave it off, too.
Yeah. You know what, honestly, this is governed by the faculty handbook, who states that faculty get a 30-minute lunch.
Yeah, that ties into
I'd
the
take
duties.
it right off.
Take it off.
So I think it's copy and pasted on this one.
There you go, off.
Well,
Take it off.
I will absolutely go with your recommendation.
Okay, great.
And then the handbook, the quarter day frames and all of that are just adjusted to, again, what we're currently doing.
Quarter day, huh? What is that?
Turn off cell, which one are you on?
No,
Yeah, did
I
I-
got the cell phone one.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Quarter
sorry,
day
leapfrogged that
time
one.
frames. What does that mean? If you have a
Well,
quarter day?
this is if a teacher's
This is
taking a
under
quarter of
the,
a
this
day
is,
off.
I'm sorry, you might not, this is under the faculty handbook amendments. Which, to be honest, we didn't ask, I don't think we were ever asked to submit those. And the faculty handbook has a lot to do with the negotiations as well, so I think she's a little ahead of herself by having that in there.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. Thank you.
High school?
Yep.
All right. Everyone have the revisions?
We do.
Okay, great. I will state that the revisions here were completed and addressed, and there was a lot of conversation with our school council group that I meet with on once a month on Wednesdays, so they provided me with some feedback, and we also had a committee of teachers reviewing the handbook, and this is what came out of that. So just looking at a few of the changes, looking at page 21, the graduation promotion requirements, I wanted to put in that seniors should be enrolled in no more than one directed study hall. Currently, we do have some seniors that choose to take 2 study halls, and I feel it's in our best interest to minimize the amount of students that are having, quote, free time during the day. Now, can that always happen or occur based off of our schedule and some of the courses and sections that we do have? I can't guarantee that, but I would like for seniors to take as many as 6 courses, if not 7, in their senior year to, quote, finish strong. So that's the first piece there. Looking at progress reports and report cards, we did go along with what the middle school is doing with providing report cards available online on X2, and so we just wanted to put that in there. At one point, we were printing out copies of everything, giving them to students, having them sign off, and so forth. So again, I like the idea of having X2 there available, and there is a higher percentage of parents as well as students that are going on. We have a higher percentage of students that go on to X2, so they're always taking a look at that. Lastly, on the FBLA, so we had a Future Business Leaders of America Association chapter. We do still have, quote, FBLA group or club, but the chapter involves having students take a course in business and marketing, and we don't have that currently, so we just took that out of the handbook as a, quote, chapter that we had in the building. Any questions on that first page? No? Okay. Second page, just looking at class dues, we just added that class dues can be paid online. Parents and students may not know that, but we have our user fees, athletic fees, music fees are all made payable online. We're able to add class dues and paying for prom and so forth on the X2. Or, well, it's not the X2 portal, but it's some sort of online portal that parents have access to that. Looking at exam exemptions, this is, I think, one of the bigger changes that we had. I will say that informally, our AP level teachers or advanced placement teachers exempt students from a final exam, and we like to make that more formal. So just picture this. We have a student who's taking 4 AP level courses. They take the AP exam, which is 3 hours long, in mid-May or early May, and then if they don't receive an 85 on that course, which a lot of them don't because of the rigor of that course, they are asked to take a final exam, which just occurred this week. We didn't feel that was fair and reasonable, especially with everything going on and the Saturday sessions that a lot of our students were participating in. So we felt, what could we do as an incentive to take an AP level course? And our teachers agreed that they don't need to take an AP level final exam if they're already taking the national exam early May. So we just added that in there as a formalized procedure.
It says that AP students must take the AP test.
The AP test.
Do any not? I mean, is there a case where some actually don't go take it?
Well, we have not had any students not, because they don't receive AP credit. They would
Right.
get just honors level credit for that course. So in order to have advanced placement credit, they take the AP exam.
You have to, yeah.
Yeah. And in my 4 years, I haven't had one
And everybody
person.
has taken it, okay.
Yeah.
No one would take it if they weren't going to take the.
What's that?
No one would take it if you weren't going to get the credit for it.
You'd be surprised.
But
Some
they also
places
have to
you'd be
pay to take
surprised.
the exam.
They have to pay,
Do you have any
exactly.
kids who need assistance in paying the fee?
They do, and there is a fee, a reduced fee through College Board that allows them to take the exam at a lot lower cost. I believe an exam is $84, and I think they pay $25 in order to take that. There is a little subsidy as well with Mass Insight that there's an additional, I think, $12 that's taken off every exam as well. So the math that we had this year was a little complicated because we had all these different calculations going on with free and reduced, with College Board. We also had our Mass Insight with the subsidy that they had. And I think they took $12 off each exam.
What would the course look like after the AP exam, though? Like, what would the final month of school look
Well,
like?
I think that's the conversation that a lot of faculty members had, that, the final exam is the incentive to keep students motivated. But I will tell you that a lot of the teachers go over the exam. Students want to know what they got right and what they didn't. There's a lot of independent projects that do occur. There could be a lab that's built in before, because a lot of these students are going to some tier 1 and 2 schools, and they're looking to be prepared for that physics or cal, and those teachers are doing that. So it's not, and in addition to that, we also have juniors that are in there with our seniors. So there is curriculum that's added to that, but a lot of it is the independent projects, presentations, and so forth.
I just wanted to know because I want to steal it, so it's fine, whatever, I'm very open. I'm very open with you about what I steal, right?
Dude, just as long as you let people know that.
I do. I tweet it out all the time, Mike.
I'll give you the MD hashtag on there.
Thank you.
So in terms of, I think later in the page 2, I think they're all just clarifying points. Some of this was just looking at attendance. Faculty members or committee members didn't like missing class more than 5 times. It was from class 6 or more times. Mid and end of year exams, it was repetitive with what was in there already, so we eliminated unexcused absences equals 0 on exam. The administrative 50s, so rather than saying more than 5 times, they wanted 6 or more, just to point of clarity. On page 3, I thought that I would be most helpful to parents and students to describe what family vacations are and trips and what our policies are on having students in school. And I will be honest here and transparent. I did make a mistake on that last sentence where it said, it read, days missed due to family vacations and personal trips are considered undocumented excused absences. Does anyone know what that means?
Shouldn't it be
Undocumented excused absences.
Should it be unexcused?
Correct.
Or, okay.
Correct. So some families took me up on my mistake and decided to go on vacation, and I excused the 3 or 4 days. I did have conversations with students in terms of the importance of being in school, and we did compromise with a few of the excused or unexcused absences that we had. So we just deleted that entire piece. Because it's some people take it for word, and I am first to say that I made a mistake there. And we had a few kiddos that decided to take vacation, but I don't think anyone really abused it. Anything else on that page? Again, these are just clarifying. Cafeteria is open at 7 o'clock in the morning for breakfast. Medications. At some point, I think, again, it read, students sent home by school nurse would be officially listed as excused for the day with approval of the principal. We just wanted to add at nurse's discretion. Some people took that as if I went to the nurse, I would get excused medically. And the nurse at some point would say, well, it's, I don't agree with that. So we just put in teachers or nurse's discretion. Personal phone calls. The office phone, again, we just wanted to clarify what was written there for office phone.
So on page 4, dress code, we had something about PJs in there, pajama pants. Some of them were, I felt, a little inappropriate for school attire. We didn't have it in there last year. We generalized a lot of our the verbiage in our dress code, and we had to add that back because we had several students call us out that it didn't say anything about pajama pants, so we were able to wear them. The next one I think is, again, another big piece that we looked at, and our faculty were in agreement that we would look at the cell phone policy. Actually, I'm sorry, that's the next one, but personal electronic devices. So looking at cell phones, right now our current policy is cell phones are able to be accessed in the cafeteria and at the discretion of teachers in the classroom. We are going to pilot a open cell phone policy that students may have their cell phone out on their own time, which mean if they're in a study hall, they could use their cell phone. If they're in the library, they could use their cell phone. If they're in the hallways, they could use their cell phone. If they are not in a in a classroom where instruction is occurring, they may utilize their cell phone. We'd like to try this out for 1 quarter with a candid conversation with students about what that means and adding a responsibility of what proper cell phone use is. And if we see that there is less discipline referrals for inappropriate cell phone use, then we will continue doing that. Some schools have an open policy with cell phones. We don't want to do that entirely, so we wanted to word it as when it's your time, 3 minutes in between classes, if you need to go and send out a text or if you want to go and check something on your phone, we do have employers that decide that they want to call seniors and juniors at 9:30 in the morning. They're able to take care of certain things, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think our students are appropriate in the cafeteria. Somebody said something about, well, you'll see a lot more selfies and videos being taken and students on inappropriate internet resources. That's not happening in the cafeteria. Students are using it to text, to call parents, employers, coaches, check Facebook, play video games. We don't have an issue with that unless it turns into something that's harassment or bullying on social media, inappropriate images being taken. So that's something that we want to go and try because a cell phone is a part of everyone's life, and we don't want to take that away. So that's something that we'd like to look at. Any questions on that? Okay. Senior Priv, we just changed the time. At one point it said 8:30 to 8:35. Our first period changed. It's slightly early. I think second period of the day starts at 8:39 or 8:29. So we ask that students are in school when they have senior privilege in the morning to come in between 8:20 and 8:25. On page 5, looking at this central detention policy, I think some of the changes here are looking at the use of personal electronic devices. In order to compromise with faculty members and with students, we're allowing them to use their cell phone more often in the classroom, but there is a greater consequence for students that do use their cell phone in an inappropriate manner. So the first offense at one point was 2 hours central, and we're going to increase that to 4 hours central, hoping that students look at that policy and say, okay, maybe I shouldn't use my cell phone when I'm in class, and that's valued time. Finally, on page 6, I think there's some just clarity there, and the cell phone policy at the bottom is just mentioning that cell phones are allowed to be used at all times with the exception of during class. And then finally on page 7, just a point of clarity, we had a lot of these forms, the user agreement, parent permission form, student handbook signature page, family ed rights and privacy signature page, military opt-out forms. They were all in the handbook. Students and parents were asked to sign the sheet, and then they tore the piece of paper out of the handbook and handed it to homeroom teacher. We're doing that all online. We started that last year, and it's still in the handbook as a reference, but we just wanted to make sure that it was in there so that parents and students can see that these forms should be completed online. And that's helped us with our paper trail.
I just have one question. Going back to the personal electronic devices, it said then, yeah, page 4 on your things that you gave us. And it said that they're now, during class time, that's fine. It said deleting skateboards and video games are not allowed in school. So skateboards are now allowed in school?
They're not.
You're not putting it in the handbook.
I took out skateboards and video games because I don't see that as an issue.
Yeah, video game, I mean, I guess that's technically on there.
Yeah, I mean, the video games are something that we have in our internet appropriate
Right,
technology
that's what I'm saying,
policy.
that's on their phone.
And
It's more
skateboards, you
skateboard
could
with-
see that as a safety violation in the hallways if they are riding a skateboard in the hallway or bringing that in. We do have some, quote, skateboarders. They'll come in and drop their skateboard off in the main office, but I felt that was old language. And at one point, we had the shoes with the wheels, the roller shoes.
Wheelies.
Wheelies? Okay. We took that out. I mean, that was something that was in there. It was a trend. It could still be, maybe in the lower grades, but we had that in our handbook. I just don't see that as something that we need to have, especially when we're trying to minimize a handbook and trying to consolidate it as much as possible. But it just
But they aren't allowed in the school?
They are allowed to have it
Up to school?
Up to school and have it appropriately stored.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, quick question. Just around.
Are you trying to steal something else?
No, I wrote everything down. I'll tell you what I'm stealing later. I mean, you took the senior privileges from me, if we're going to put that out there. It's just a kind of philosophical question, if we could talk about it for a minute. I like the cell phone stuff that you're doing, and we're becoming a Google school over the next couple of years. Is there any transition from like 8th grade, Justin, to high school in terms of using their phone in class? Is that going to be discussed? Again, there's not an exact answer right now, but it is part of even middle schoolers' lives, in terms of that. So are there classes using it now? I mean, depending on who gets the Chromebooks next year, how are we going to kind of think about that? Because I think the trend is what Mike's talking about in terms of how do we kind of continue to model balance around being a blended learning environment and digitally and so forth. So is there any discussion at the middle school about any of that?
Yep. We put it in our handbook, I think, 3 years ago, and cell phones are in classrooms. I don't think, we're not proposing hallways, lunches just yet. We'd love to see how it goes up at the high school. But yeah, they're very much illuminated and on during classes. I think the middle school teachers, 8th grade teachers especially, just have them power it down at the end and, even give them 30 seconds to go get to their lockers.
And are they using it as part of the class?
Yes.
They are. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
If I can just jump in, both schools have bring your own device policies. The difference has been the past year we did not promote it because we did not have the bandwidth. So next year that is an opportunity for growth. And I don't know if anyone read the Globe end of last week, a couple days ago. More and more kids are using Google to do their homework on their phone. They're typing whole papers on their phone. As horrifying as it is to us, and again, we need to look at, instead of how we use technology and trying to impose it on the youth, we need to look at how the youth wants to use technology and facilitate it so they learn. So, the kids are doing their homework on their phones, mine included. And if that's a way to get them engaged in doing their work and having the work to pass it in to put it through Google Classroom, then let's go.
Agreed.
Again, just to, I think to add with the cell phone policy, I mean, I think there's some people that are for, some people that are completely against. I think our philosophy is that if we can teach appropriate digital citizenship and correct it immediately in the classroom, rather than say, shut your phone off, the piece or that device that you have on constantly, and then you walk through the doors of BMR or Heart in the Middle, and you need to shut them off completely, I think is a disservice. So for us, I think, we're looking to teach students, adults, to learn and use technology appropriately. And I'm looking forward to seeing what first quarter brings, because right now, when we ask students to shut off their phones or not have it in the hallway, they'll go into the bathroom, text away, and come back out. So if they don't have to hide that, we'll see what happens in terms of discipline referrals.
Sounds like gum chewing in this building.
Is that it?
Just a very quick follow-up. Technology is not decreasing anywhere in our lives and in our students' lives. And you look at the exponential growth of all technology, we are doing our students a big disservice if we don't allow them to pursue and educate themselves as to what, as Mike said, digital citizenship is. So we are going to have to strike that balance quarterly, yearly, especially if we get to go to Chromebooks, and make sure that our students have access. And we have all 5 of our schools now, every square inch, will have wireless capacity and coverage. So I think it's a good thing, and just like everything else that we have experienced over the last 25 years, there are starts and stops and periods of time where we have to adjust, but this is going to have to be incorporated ultimately more and more at the elementary grades. So I think we are on the right track, and I applaud Mr. Cameron and Mr. Dudek for the approach.
I believe so. I also am presenting our NEASC accreditation report.
Yes.
I'm not sure when you'd like for me to do that.
A few more.
Those two?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? So come back.
Oh, do we want to?
Do we make the
Oh, we gotta
motion?
vote.
Well,
We
there's a video.
Two more.
Oh, there's other 2 other pages.
Yeah.
These are policies, not handbooks, so we might want to
Okay.
approve
So,
the handbooks
looking
first.
to
and then
approve.
we'll-
Okay, now that all 3 handbook adjustments have been presented, do we have a motion to approve the handbook adjustments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move to change, or to accept the handbook additions, deletions, and changes with the addition of a Rhode Island television station.
Motion made by Jane, is there a second?
Second, and there are a couple little minor changes,
Yeah.
but basically, as presented.
Yeah.
As presented.
Presented tonight.
Seconded by Steve, discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. NEASC report for the high school.
Okay. So you received the letter, the intro letter that we had for accommodations and recommendations, and there's a detailed, I think, 97-page report.
We did?
Okay.
Get it
And you
all.
all went through that.
We did, line by line.
Okay. So would you like to share something that you?
Sure, let me show you my video.
Oh, so let me start by, again, the school committee is the first to see the report, with the exception of myself and my committee members. I will say that the NEAS self-report and the visit that we had was completed within the last 2 years. I will look at the NEAS self-study and visit as a great opportunity for us to really self-reflect on what we've been doing, collecting data to assess a lot of our strengths and weaknesses that we have, and finally, which I think is most important, to recognize all the good that we do. Oftentimes, you go in and day out, you don't realize what you have in the buildings and what you have for staff and a faculty. And we were reminded at our NEAS visit and the visiting team that came in that we have great faculty members that are willing and able to support our wonderful students, and our students really led the charge with that visit, and I really appreciate everything that they did to make it, to me, a successful visit. Stressful, but successful. I will add that the NEAS process doesn't stop. As they reminded me, it only begins in terms of coming up with strategies and action plans for some of their recommendations. So I just want to go over and highlight a few, not going over all, but I would like to just highlight a few that I felt was most important. And I don't know if there's a mouse, and I do have a live link for core values and beliefs, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So looking at some of the accommodations that the committee came up with, one of the pieces that they looked at were our learning expectations, addressing academic, social, and civic competencies, and looking at our rubrics. They felt developing those and using those in the school community was something that was a strength for us. I will state that our school-wide rubrics is something that we need to work on to implement, to report out on, and to provide data to the community in terms of how we feel our students are fulfilling the 21st learning expectations. So we did a visit already to Joseph Case High School in Swansea to talk about what they do, because they were a model school when looking at learning expectations and how do they incorporate that within the curriculum and sort of their daily practice. And we were able to pick up a bunch of different ideas in terms of how do we incorporate the learning expectations in everything that we do. The reflection of our core values and beliefs in school culture was another accommodation from the NEAS team. I could share this with you, but the link is just a click away to our website where we have our core values addressed, our rubrics, our learning expectations, and we created a video for the accreditation team having our students describe what our core values mean to them. So that was a process that we had for 2 or 3 years to talk about the core values. It wasn't something that kids just were able to say that these are our core values. They were able to live it, explain it, and put it in their own words. So that is something that we presented and they appreciated. I will talk about our AP and honors advanced level classes. The team was, they felt that the emphasis of high-level learning and looking at Bloom's taxonomy, problem-solving inquiry, was something that we do well with our higher-level classes. I will state that one of the recommendations is that we increase our rigor in our CP level classes, and they felt that some of the instruction that was happening there didn't challenge our students enough. And then looking at a commitment of teachers utilizing the PLC time to collaborate and reflect, so our PLC or personal learning community time. A lot of our teachers, whether it's that formalized PLC time or on their own time, we're able to really collaborate, discuss, collect data, look at assessments, and talk about best practices, and they felt that that was something that we did very well in. Looking at the next slide, as you know, our budget is where it is, and the assistant superintendent and superintendent and you as well allocated some funds last year that we were able to use to look at curriculum, and that is something that they felt was important and necessary, and was a great idea that we were able to allocate or reallocate some funding to really support what we're looking to do. They also talked about hiring a new or having an assistant superintendent to talk about technology and instruction. A lot of our teachers in the last couple of years have struggled without having somebody in that role. And so that is something that they felt was also accommodation for what we're looking to do. Also, just prioritizing our needs for the budget. We have a needs-based budget. We talk about what we want for our students and for the community. And I think that is something that we do very well. We don't just throw money out there for fun things. We do what we feel is necessary for our kids. They also talked about the positive school culture, allowing students to really feel safe and respected and supported. They talked about the relationships that they saw with teachers and students, but they also talked about our Charter Strong program, having students realize that it is 4 years of high school and they want students to start strong and also finish strong. So that was something of a highlight. Finally, we talked about partnerships with our school and local community, benefiting students with our internship opportunities. I will say that I feel that we can do better with our internship opportunities and building partnerships with our community agencies. So I have several ideas in the mix about how we can do that and really bring real life experiences to our kids. So that is something that I'd like to be able to bring forward and improve, but they felt that was accommodation when they came in and heard the many internship opportunities that our kids were going into. Here's a great segue. We were just talking about technology and cell phones and Chromebooks. The hiring of a full-time librarian media communication specialist. The lack of a full-time library media specialist is putting us at warning in one of the standards. They would like for us to really examine that piece that I feel is extremely vital for our students at the middle school, our high school, the teachers, and integrating technology, especially when it's in the hands of our kids. Are they using it appropriately, and how do we integrate that within our classroom? The other piece in terms of the concerns was just the lack of dependability or dependable funding for programs and services. So looking at ongoing professional development, curriculum revision, tech support, sufficient equipment and instructional materials. This is something that they felt that for us to examine and see what we can do to really make or have dependable funding for the many programs and initiatives that we're looking to do. In terms of some specific recommendations, one, we're looking at developing and implementing a plan to provide dependable funding for programs and services. So when we're looking at standards, these are standards 6 and 7. So standard on community resources and for learning and school resources for learning. They also want us to look at hiring a certified library media specialist, really developing a formal technology plan supporting upgrades and professional development. I know at the time when we had the visit, our visiting members here, they were talking about technology integration. I do believe there is a plan that that Dr. Thompson's been talking about with Osiris and the leadership team, but at that point we didn't have something that was formal on paper, and this is our quote 3 to 5 year plan when we talk about technology. And I think that's still up in the air. I mean, we talk about one-to-one learning. We don't know if that's going to be supported in our budget. So looking at where we are, I could report out and let the committee know where we're going to go with our technology. And then finally, looking at a lot of building concerns that they had, knowing that our building is 1969. One piece that they felt, and again, they got feedback from everyone. This was parents and community members and faculty and students and so forth, but privacy of classrooms. So if you know what the high school looks like, they're pods, and you have 4 classrooms in a pod. Some of them have doors, some of them don't. So if you're in a math class, you may share a wall with your colleague. There isn't a door in between. And the noise level, they felt that at times was a distraction. So they wanted us to go and look at how do we create more privacy for teachers and students. And I do understand where they're coming from. There are parts in the building that do have doors that were there, but there are other parts or pods that don't. And then looking at ADA compliance with doorknobs, and various things from an ADA piece. Looking at improved communication via classroom. Some of our phones in the classrooms, the internal phones don't work appropriately. They may come in, they may come out. That's something that they wanted us to look at in case there was any type of issue or concern in terms of communication. Our science labs are outdated, and that to me is a priority. We talk about AP classes and we talk about AP physics and chem and physics. We need gas. We need gas in an AP chemistry class for labs. We have one lab that right now is outfitted for gas. And our venting and the hoods that are in there, the large lab tables, all of that needs to be examined and upgraded. So that's something that they mentioned, as well as heating and venting and some of the locations of some of our offices where guidance and our nurses are. So those are some building upgrades. And then finally, just some additional recommendations. They did mention that we've been working tremendously on our curriculum. We do have a written curriculum for all of our departments. We've been updating those, but what they would like to see is that on a common format or common template as well. That's something that we're on. Right now we have Aspen X2 that will be housing all of our curriculum. As you know, we were with teaching Edwin Teaching and Learning, and you know where that went. So that was a slow process, but we do have Aspen X2, and our faculty have done a nice job with that. So that will be, to me, an easy point to address when I have to go and file a 2-year progress report. Looking in again at increasing.
Would Atlas cover that, Dave?
It's Aspen X2.
Yep.
But if we went to Atlas with our curriculum maps and so forth, would that cover that?
We went with Aspen to cover that.
Aspen. So
Right.
Aspen would be.
But it's an additional functionality of the program, of the system we already have.
So again, increasing rigor in our CP level courses, and that is something that I feel like we're going to address. Looking at what are essential questions, what are learning expectations, and for me, I think that all students should be able to learn at a high level, and that is something that they wanted us to go look at. One thing that was mentioned is timely feedback on assessments, and I believe this happened with some parents. We do have a policy that teachers need to update grades on Aspen X2 every 2 weeks, and some parents or students mentioned that that may not be happening all the time. A student will get a test, it gets graded, but it's not updated on X2. So for me, the reason why we assess is so that we have feedback and it's immediate. So that's something that I'm going to have to address with my staff. And then finally, looking at evaluating and refining the use of our school-wide rubrics, which coincide with our learning expectations. And for that, again, if we have rubrics and we're assessing students on specific skills and content, how are we analyzing that and reporting out to the community, to our students, and to the faculty? So that is something that we're well on our way with. But I feel that this report is pretty accurate. I don't think there were any surprises. I mean, we knew that we have an older building that needs to be upgraded at some point. We know that we don't have a library media communication specialist. Those are the points that I knew when we did a self-evaluation. That's what we were going to be hit on. I will say that we did receive higher marks from the committee on certain things when we're talking about rigor and relevance in the classroom and the instructional practices that do occur, and looking at our curriculum. And there's a lot that does happen in our building, and I will just a quick story. The last day, it's a Wednesday. It's a little anxious moment for the entire staff because we are in the auditorium, and the NEASC visiting chair comes down and addresses the faculty and administration and talks about their thoughts of their visit for the last 3 days. They all came down with their Charger Strong T-shirts, the big yellow shirts. They wore that, and they couldn't have been happier with their experience and the pride that our kids had in talking about just the respect that they saw. And I will say that is something that a lot of our seniors have talked about, that when we go out into the community, whether it's at student council, workshop events, whether it's out for sporting events or music, band competitions, our kids are respectful. They're polite, and that to me, I think, is something that is wonderful to hear as an administrator and as parents in the district. So,
Mike, is next year, when will the senior class be? Is it 2 years from now that would have the full Start Strong, the full 4 years? Is it next year or the following year?
I did just write up something. I believe I did it in 13-14.
Okay.
So
next 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. Okay. That'll be interesting to see how the first full class to go through that 4 years, because it's strong now.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that is.
So one of the senior banquet awards, I am coming up with a Finish Strong award, going to several members, but I'll let you be surprised on that day. But we do have a Finish Strong. What I think Finish Strong means to seniors. So
Is something that could be done immediately? Can we put doors up, or is that just not doable right now in terms of when in those areas?
You'd have to put a whole wall up, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, they're just open.
Wide open.
No, I know. Yeah.
It goes into like a Y kind of shape.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
And this is something that I feel that we're going to have to discuss and talk about, because I do have 2 years to report out to the NEASC, and again, this is when the real work is going to happen. I think there's a lot of quote easy fixes, and there's some that are going to be a little more difficult. I will say with the door issue, I mean, there's some that are wide, 8-foot openings that are going to be harder to do, but there are some that you could fit a door in. But I think the issue is the steel fire
framing
wall that needs to go in. I've heard a door is going to cost about $1,500 to put in and install, and we probably need about 10 to really do that. I don't think you need to outfit every classroom, as long as there's one door for two classrooms. Noise level is not there. So.
I joked earlier about reading the whole thing, but I actually did go through it. And I was really, I know that they recommended the written curriculum be placed in a common format, but I think more important to me, as I read this in several places, they talked about how what is written in terms of curriculum is being taught. And I think that's a really important piece, because we're doing what we say we're gonna do. And I that stood out several places to me. So, but we definitely do need a long-term plan for building facility.
But I think, we're getting there. I'm reading some of these recommendations, and with technology, and there's a lot of things that you'll be able to report out that we feel very strongly about as a committee that we're moving forward with. So although the building is going to be topic for conversation, I think the other things we're moving along, nicely with.
Right. I think I've always had a goal of getting whatever we have to get in for science labs by January, getting those SOIs into the building authority, whatever, and just getting it in there and see if we qualify to get a reimbursement, even if we had 2 labs or 3 labs. Those are no-brainers that we just have to kind of continue to do, and hopefully that would include getting gas in there, correct? Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of a similar thing. I know you had exit interviews with some of the seniors. I know at least one of them.
Yes. I will tell you, he was.
He talked about his dad a lot.
Yeah.
It was
very open and honest,
Yeah.
but it was a great interview, and I appreciated the reflection there.
But just in general, what were the themes, or what are some of the things that the kids brought up about good, bad, and the ugly about BMR?
I will tell you, I opened it up and I invited several seniors to come in. I had 2 seniors to see me so far. But I will say that one of the, certain classes that they're looking for, I know Chris mentioned something about being prepared for the, quote, real world and going to college and not being able to completely balance a checkbook. So having a personal finance course. We talked about how do we bring underclassmen to really take on the challenge of taking on an extracurricular. This year, our athletic teams are senior and junior heavy. If we're looking at our track and field team, that the indoor track and field team just won the DVC, they're all seniors. So looking at how do we get our underclassmen to really take pride in that. Those are two things that came up.
Yeah, it's one thing you talk about a lot. It's
also the internships. Looking at he had a lovely opportunity to go out and know whether or not he wanted to do OT PT.
Yeah.
And he went to a local BMR alum out in North Smithfield, and he talked about a capstone project. So that was another thing. We know that that's out there. State of Rhode Island is a requirement to have a capstone project, and he brought that up in looking at how do we extend on our internships and things that he had. But he did tell me he loved the time that he had, and if he had to do it all over again, he'd be a BMR charger. And I told him I appreciate everything that he's done. He's a wonderful young man, and he's always wearing that shirt. Sometimes I'm missing him on the streets when he's running around, but he always has the BMR attire on. So I think the students this year, especially, I think have appreciated the time that they had at BMR, and you could see all that hard work and effort really come out with everything that they're doing. It doesn't have to be college, but we have a lot of students that have plans. They're not just going out into the real world with nothing available to them. Our guidance staff has done a tremendous amount of work to get them to think about what's next on Saturday, June 3rd. And that's when it really hits kids. So.
Good.
Any other questions?
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks very much.
Did you want to touch base on the videotaping and the?
Well, I can introduce it, and then we'll probably need to have Loretta come back. But at the back of the packet on handbooks, there's two suggestions for policies. One around tape recording of special ed team meetings. We have a process that's been implemented, but having a school committee policy would be much better. We do not need to allow the taping or videotaping of team meetings, and it can be problematic to the process. However, if there is a disability, we need to accommodate that, which might include all sorts of things, and perhaps taping and what have you. So this is a suggestion. Probably have Mrs. Braverman.
June 9th.
On June 9th.
All the directors will be here for their end-of-year reports.
Wanted to kind of give you a chance to read through that draft. The other one is a proposed toileting policy. Right now, the district does not have one, and that is not a good idea for multiple reasons, both safety of children as well as protection of adults. So you can see a draft of that policy here as well. So those are two policies that Mrs. Braverman thinks that we believe strongly that we should have in our policy manual, and they're presented to the school committee for their digestion.
Are there others? I mean, when she presents, is she going to say, well, this is what 5 other school districts have as their model? I mean, should we reach out to MASC to see what they have for video and audio?
I believe when Mrs. Braverman comes on the 9th, along with Mr. Gonzalez and Mrs. Sheridan and all the department heads, she'll explain this in detail because she has done all that research.
Okay. Right. And these have come from other models, and I know that the videotaping one was, I believe, discussed with our lawyer for special ed as well.
Any other questions? Okay, the next thing on the list is the FY17 budget update.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Greenstein. We are in the middle between town meetings. Having spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks looking at the process and where we are, which is very similar to where we were 2 years ago. It is unacceptable. We need a school budget to grow at a modest rate every year, whether that's 1.5%, 1.75%, 2%. We need to be able to plan on that sort of incremental increase. And in 5 of the past 10 years, where our general fund budget has been decreased, is very challenging to do all the things that we are being tasked with. And I know that the committee appreciates that and certainly has been behind it and supporting it. I can run through very quickly the scenario that we are facing, and it will sound very familiar. Millville's town meeting is early, Blackstone's town's meeting is late. Blackstone, if they vote the number that the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee are recommending, we will have to go back to the town of Millville on June 6th and request another town meeting so that the budget that will be recertified by the committee next Wednesday can be considered. If that vote does not happen, then the school committee must call a district-wide super town meeting. The problem with this is the timing. If we don't get a budget by June 15th, then I have no choice but to reduce in force a substantial number of employees. And that is about the worst thing you can do to improve the quality of teaching and learning for our children. And I cannot stress that enough, that for those watching at home, to understand that teachers work very hard for the education of our children, your future citizens. And if we do a good job, everybody benefits. And part of the problem is we have not been consistent, and we need to get consistency. But in order to have a budget by June 15th, we need to move town meetings earlier. And certainly it would help if Blackstone's town meeting was the first Monday in May and Millville's town meeting was the second Monday in May. And then we would have the timeline if we had to go back and ask for the money that the school committee certifies in the budget. We would not then be faced with sending out notices of reduction in force. Because then we lose good people, morale declines, and our unemployment costs go up, thereby saddling the taxpayers with unnecessary expenses. And that is just totally unacceptable. And we're not asking for 3 and 4 and 5% every year, year after year, but we do need to come to grips with what it costs to educate our students. And so I would hope that Tuesday, May 31st at 7 p.m. at the high school auditorium, Blackstone voters support our budget, and then I will be returning to Millville's Board of Selectmen's meeting on June 6th, and it will take 14 days to announce a meeting and 2 days for the constables to post it. So we are then beyond June 15th, and I will have to lay off staff, hopefully to bring them back if they are still interested in returning.
Now, can we set that meeting preemptively, just in case, and get it in between the 6th and the 15th? Can we
The problem is, it first has to go back to the towns.
Yeah.
Chapter 71, 16B, 603 CMR 41.05, which I am becoming very familiar with,
apparently,
means that it has to go back to the towns first for them to vote the recertified budget.
And that town that it goes back to has to have a town meeting. They can't do it in the Board of Selectmen.
Has to be a town meeting. It takes 14 days to post. And you then need a quorum, and then you need 2/3 vote of that quorum, because that money would be coming out of stabilization.
if in this particular case, it's the town of Millville, if Blackstone votes to approve the amount, it can't go back to Millville before the 6th because they don't have a they don't have a
That would be the
selectmen meeting.
Selectmen's meeting.
Yeah, they have that already
So
posted.
then you're looking at the 20th.
Right. And this number is a 1.1% increase in our budget, $244,000, which is simply not enough, but we will find a way to make it work by postponing this and making sure that we stretch this and look for all other opportunities. But the system just doesn't favor the sequence that we need. And it is very unfortunate that we find ourselves in this predicament.
I think it also causes a lot of confusion because people automatically see Millville vote one way, and then they think, okay, it's a done deal. I don't need to go to the town meeting now for Blackstone because they've already made their decision, and I think it hurts in the end for...
We would need everyone to vote in Blackstone, and we will certainly need folks in Millville to support that additional $63,428, which increases our general fund budget by 1.1%.
So just for people at home, if it doesn't pass in Blackstone, how much money total are we cutting from our budget?
Well, if it doesn't pass in Blackstone, then we have a super town meeting. School committee has the right to call a district-wide meeting.
No, if it doesn't pass in
It doesn't.
If it fails in Blackstone, they will have failed in both towns. What's
Yes.
our
What's
impact
that
then?
number, 800, 900?
The total number is just about $1 million. We cut $473,712 already, and then this would be a $550,000 additional reduction, which would put the budget at $22,035,000.
Millville had a town Board of Selectmen meeting last night, and it wasn't held because they didn't have a quorum. And so I know they're moving to another meeting for that purpose on June 1st. Is there a chance we could bring this to them on June 1st?
Yes. We are discussing that.
They have to put it on their agenda.
What?
They have to put it on their
Well,
agenda.
I know
I will be there to petition
that they do
to put
that
it on the warrant.
on June 1st.
June 1st.
And as I mentioned to both finance committees and both boards of selectmen, if the goal is to water down the value of our education and reduce the number of students, we're heading in the right direction. We're doing a darn fine job of that. But I don't think that's what most people want. I would think they would rather listen to our principals explain all of the good things that are happening in our schools and all of the reasons why students are being successful. And it's because of family support, it's because of their motivation, and it's because of terrific instruction. And I think that in combination delivers a school system that folks want to attend. And you know, I know if you're looking for property, you want to settle in a community that supports education when you have
First
young
thing
children.
you look for if you're a young family
Yeah.
is the education system and what they have to offer. And
Right. And if you're paying for public safety, you want to have the most minimal amount of issues with your young people, and those are guaranteed by a strong educational system that produces fine adults like this senior class, which is top to bottom as outstanding a group of young people as you could ever hope for.
Agreed.
And that's a terrific credit to our families. So that is the budget update. It will require much communication. It will require hopefully some support from folks who maybe don't think that they need to come out. But we are at a critical juncture because we have seen our student enrollment decline precipitously the last several years, and students choose to take other options. And I believe that we have a darn fine district, as witnessed by all of the great events that were held, that we've done, and by the recognition that our district has received from multiple outside organizations, and some nationally. So those are all things that we are very proud of. But it's difficult to do that without the necessary planned, targeted funding. And again, I will make this offer to anyone that if there are questions about the budget, feel free to call me, email me, come on down. We can go through every line, we can go through every account, and you can see where every penny is being spent. Because I think it's that important that voters understand where we are in this current FY17 budget. The budget that the committee brought forth on March 10th was the right number for our district to move forward. That is unfortunate that we are significantly below that. And for all the reasons that I know people are sick and tired of hearing that I've been identifying over the last several months. And we got more bad news from the state today in how they are refusing to address public education in our traditional districts. And it's wonderful that we have charter schools, and it's wonderful that we have all the options in front of us, but if you're going to abandon the funding of our districts, you're going to get what you get. And the state has certainly done that. So I think that we continue to look for revenue, we continue to look for other sources of funds, but in the meantime, the towns need to understand what's at stake. And as you heard earlier, I will be around for 3 more years. And I will look forward to working with everyone in order to make this district the best that it can be. So that's most of the budget update.
Just one thing is, we have a meeting scheduled for June 1st for the workshop to recertify the budget.
Recertify the budget,
So
yes.
if that meeting does come into place for June 1st, we would have to set that meeting earlier.
Yes.
Before that Millville meeting.
And I
So
believe it's set for 6.
it is set for
And
6.
that would work probably okay.
It would still be okay?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to double check on that.
Yes.
And that-
And we would need a quorum for that next
Yeah.
Wednesday.
A similar thing, can we send we reach out to our union and ask Mark Juba to request
He already has done that.
since we are the biggest employer in town,
He has done
we
that.
can ask the employees to
Yes.
support
Yes.
us at
Yes.
the town meeting?
Yes,
Excellent,
and that has already happened.
excellent, good.
All set?
That would be my update on the FY17 budget.
Okay. Now we're just getting into the regional agreement update. There was a few questions that we'll just have answered first.
Yep.
But in everybody's packet, I asked for the regional agreement to be put in there. So everybody that is looking for a copy of what it reads and what it says, you can find it in our packet along with the NEASC report and everything else that we look at every day that we're here in these meetings. But just to go over the regional agreement, there was a question about school choice from Blackstone to Millville, and I'm
Right.
just wondering if you could clarify that
Yes.
question first.
Thank you. I'd be happy to, having talked to legal counsel. A lot of folks hear school choice and think that that is the program that school committees can offer within their own public districts. And if you are a school choice district, you are able to receive students from other districts, and the state allocates the funds to follow the students. We currently choice in a little over 40 students. We also have about 80 that choice out. And that school choice program is set every year by the school committees.
We did it last meeting.
And we did that at our last meeting. And we are able to receive unlimited amounts of students in all grades. Because we do have, the one thing that we do have is capacity. We have 5 schools that can handle more students. That school choice does not apply in our regional agreement, in our district.
So for instance,
For instance,
school
if you
choicing to
live-
Millville, Millville school choicing to Blackstone.
Correct. We don't have that ability to do that. The only exception to that would be if there's a specific program, typically around special education, that is only offered in a specific building, and the student qualifies for that. that would be the exception to the rule. But for, I believe, and I don't know the exact history, but for most of the district's existence, Millville students, well, since '92, go to Millville Elementary, and Blackstone students go to either John F. Kennedy or Augustine F. Maloney.
And it's because of the sentence in that regional agreement that says they need to be housed in their own elementary
Yes.
schools. Is that accurate?
That is correct. So the school choice that applies to, between public districts doesn't apply to our regional district. And obviously, when students arrive in grade 6, they are all together here at the middle school and continue their journey through both the middle school and the high school. That is the reason for all of the work that the Regional Agreement Committee has done over the last couple of years. And I think Mr. Tringali said it best. We only want to do what's best for our students. That's the only motivation to be able to offer this amendment, which would allow students to be grouped by grade level, starting when they enter school. And I think that that's the right reason. And certainly, we have seen that Millville did not support that amendment. It's Article 3, this coming Tuesday night in Blackstone. And obviously, for it to have another chance to be reconsidered, the amendment, as it appears in the warrant, would have to be motioned on the floor. And we have a copy of that, again, from council, as to what that would have to be made on the floor in order to give it an expiration date that would allow Millville to bring it back at their fall town meeting, if the committee desires to do that.
Can I just ask one, going back to that school choice question, just for clarity? The only amendment that could be made with this regional agreement is actually taking out that sentence. We couldn't put an amendment in there, could we, for that school choice within schools? Because that really wouldn't make sense to have an amendment put in there when we have
It
those
violates
lines.
your own statement.
Right. I just want people at home to understand, you know, can there be an amendment made? But it really, because we have those lines in there, it just.
And the agreement allows for a rather complicated steps to be taken in order to get the proposed amendments even in front of the towns.
Correct.
So this regional agreement committee has done an awful lot of work to get us where we are. The only other change I made on the motion was to implement it 1 year later.
2018,
because by the
19,
time, if this were to be reconsidered in the fall, 17, 18 would be very quick.
Yeah.
So we amended that in this motion
That's great.
to 2018, 2019.
So just for clarity, I think this just needs to be said, is that, you know, there was a lot of conversation on, you know, is it dead in Blackstone because it was dead in Millville? And I think the answer to that would be no, because we could send it back to Millville based on the amendment, the proposed amendment that we have here.
Yes.
Now, because we would send it back to Millville and they would vote, let's say in November, that would push, we wouldn't want to rush anything. And so we would move the time for this to happen a year later.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that people understand that, you know, it's not dead. I think the committee needs to have a conversation on, you know, the amount of work that we've done, and hear people's thoughts on the committee before we say, you know, and we can wait. We can always talk about this in the Blackstone and see where it goes.
I think we need to hear Blackstone's voice.
Absolutely.
I mean, they have a voice, and we need to hear that voice, and we need to hear that direction, and then based on that direction, I think we have a responsibility to pull all of the voices together, because that's something, I mean, we asked for, you know, people to come into our committee, and we asked for assistance, and we got a tremendous amount of it, but we've had, you know, we've heard very vocal sides both ways, and we need to pull those voices together. I mean, we need to flesh this out some more, but I don't think we need to do any of that till we hear what Blackstone says.
Well, I think, just from some of the feedback I've seen online and everywhere else and from different people, I think it's important. There's been a lot of ideas and things thrown around about why isn't it done this way, and I mean, nothing's going to be perfect no matter what kind of plan you come up with.
Yep.
But I think it's important to let people know that nothing can change if the wording's not changed. You can have the best plan in the world, have it laid out A to Z, transportation, 100%, everything in order. You can't do any of that until that line item's gone. And that stops every change or plan, whether it's a great idea or flawless, regardless.
And I think what's also important to know is that, you know, the idea didn't come from the committee. The idea came from a group of people, whether they were teachers, parents, you know, everybody was on those. And I know a lot of things moved around. But, you know, I agree with Joanne. Nothing can change unless this is passed. But I also think we need to be sensitive to the scrutiny that we've been through. So I think, you know, I do agree that we need to have all voices heard, and I do believe that it's not dead, but I also think we need to be sensitive to what we've been through as committee members and, you know, elected people on this committee. So I just caution that, you know, and I look forward to moving forward as a person that, you know, spearheaded this committee. It's just, you know, I want to have Blackstone's voice heard. I think it's important, but I also think it's important for people to understand that it's not dead, and it can go back to Millville, and it would be a year later than what was originally discussed, so that it's not something that's being rushed or pushed. Any other discussion? Okay.
And I just wanted to say that both Blackstone and Millville need to know we have outstanding students. We have great kids that go to school in our district. And the towns have to be proud of that. And can we do a better job of maybe interacting and getting the word out? Absolutely. But you have to know that you have students who are getting ready to move on and take their place in our society because of the wonderful things that have happened in our district. And we just want to keep the momentum going. We know that we need many things. This amendment would only enhance that. It would only give us better opportunities for every single student. And they're our students. They might live in two towns, but it's one educational community. Thank you.
And we are a district, and that's, people, I think, need to move past the fact that there's Millville and Blackstone and realize you're a district, whether you like it or not, you're tied from the beginning, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. And, I mean, if you let the kids vote, they'd probably vote it through from kindergarten on, but.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And I think when we're told to sharpen our pencils and we're told, you know, we're coming up with other ideas that would enhance what we already have. So if there's ideas out there, you know, we welcome them, but we're pushing ideas forward based on, you know, the amount of people that volunteered their time to move it forward. And we'll see where it goes on. We'll see where it goes on Tuesday. Any other questions on the regional agreement?
Do we have to approve this amendment before it goes? Do we have to approve that that's what we want to do?
No, but a Blackstone
Voter must.
Oh, no, I know that.
Makes
Yes.
the motion. And I just have one more piece of my report, and that is the senior class has asked me to make sure that I remember to invite the entire committee next Thursday to awards night at the high school at 7. And whoever is available, the senior class breakfast on Friday at 8 o'clock, which the committee generously sponsors. They would love to see as many of you there, and then graduation at 6 on Friday, June 3rd. And they just wanted me to make sure that I invited all of you.
What time is the breakfast?
8 o'clock
8 a.m.
on Friday,
Could be there.
June 2nd.
Will you be at it all, Steve?
The report of the assistant superintendent.
Yes, just real quick, just an update on our summer math and reading programs. We are in the final preparation of finalizing those. The high school and the middle school are both going with one school, one book, as well as online math, much like they did last year. I believe the middle school has chosen the book. The high school has whittled it down to 4 options. They have not decided yet. The elementary folks have their packets in order. I believe 4th grade is also going to do a one school, one book. And they're almost close to selecting the particular book they're going to use. So we're going to be finalizing the packets, a few final tweaks, and we will have those for your review on June 9th.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Public forum? Nope. School committee forum? Bill, anything?
I'm good.
All good.
I was able to attend the Chamber of Commerce breakfast with Mr. Dudek and the top 10 students today. That was this morning at, where was it actually? Lake Pearl, Luciano's Lake Pearl in Rentham. The top 10 students were recognized, but I'd like to recognize Rebecca Hahn. She was given the Unsung Hero Award. I didn't even know that such a thing existed, but it was great to see her get recognized. And she was recognized by the staff of BMR. And that was there was about a 4-paragraph long description of why she deserved the award. But again, congratulations to her. We have a busy next week coming up. Absolutely. I'm just keeping track of this. The Blackstone Town meeting on Tuesday. The final budget meeting on Wednesday, and also the Millville meeting on Wednesday, the awards night on Thursday, and the graduation on Friday. So we definitely have a busy week. Again, I don't know why people did not vote for our budget in Millville. Why we would not vote for it in Blackstone, I don't know. We're recognized at all levels. I mean, I just made a list just quickly now. Kat Boisvert, our preschool teacher, was nationally recognized. Dave Eisenberg in the elementary level was recognized. Justin Cameron was Principal of the Year. Michael Dudek just got an award. Gene Sheridan, our Food Service Director, was Northeast?
Yes, region.
And of course, our band is national champions. So we're succeeding at all levels, despite the funding that we get. So imagine what we could do if we had money. I mean, we have, the staff is here, the administrators are here. I would hate to see what would happen, and I really hope we don't lose good people because of this. That'll be crippling. It really will be.
And I think, just to add to that, Steve, too, I think for anybody to think that there's all this extra or that padding numbers, whatever you want to call it, I'm in the school all the time at the elementary school level. I can tell you they're working at bare minimum and doing a great job, but there's no extras right now, and I don't understand it. I really don't, but.
Yeah. And if you want to see how good we are, come to the awards night on Thursday and graduation on Friday. You'll see.
Nothing to add. Okay, our next upcoming meeting is going to be on June 9th. At that meeting, we're going to have the end-of-the-year report for technology, special ed, and the food service director. And if you have any agenda items, just please email, and we will get them on the agenda.
We do have the workshop on June 1st. though.
We do have the workshop. Yep, we have the workshop on June 1st at 6 o'clock to recertify the budget. And I think that's it. We will be going into executive session after the close of this meeting for the purpose of discussion negotiations with union personnel, and we will not be returning. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn to executive session
We have to have a roll call
You have to
vote.
roll
Yep.
call
Yep.
and not to return.
and not to return.
So,
Second.
motion made by Jane, seconded by Bill. Roll call vote.
Yes. Doesn't matter if I say no anyways. I've tried that before.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.